Judaism didn't start until after Christianity. Wait, how does that make any sense? God gave Moses the Torah more than 1,000 years BC, and C himself, Jesus, is a Jew. And that's all true, but history shows that while Jewish people existed and followed the religion of Moses long before Jesus, Judaism went through a transformation so fundamental in the couple hundred years after Jesus that it's no longer the religion that Moses gave in the Torah. One of the greatest experts in rabbinic literature said, Shabbat laws, Kashrut laws, you name it, it's not in the scriptures, not in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, there's no synagogue, no Kaddish, no Kol Nidre, no Bar-Mizwa, no Talit. Everything that somebody would define as Jewish and look for in its root, it's not in the Old Testament. It's the sages' literature. Where do these traditions come from? In the Second Temple period, around 150 BC, Jewish society was not unified in its religious interpretation. There were multiple groups: the Sadducees, the Essenes, the Qumran society, and the Pharisees. The Pharisees were known for zealously keeping their traditions. Sources like Josephus and later rabbinic writings describe the Pharisees as strict about their ancestral traditions. But before the destruction of the temple, the Pharisees were in the minority. The other groups didn't agree with the Pharisees that the Pharisees' traditions trace back to Moses. Even though the Pharisees were in the minority 2,000 years ago, Judaism, as it exists today, comes from their traditions. Rabbi David Rosen, who was chief rabbi of Ireland, said the bottom line is that Jewish tradition for most of the last 2,000 years viewed the Pharisees as the rabbis of our heritage, heirs of the prophets and biblical tradition, the teachers of authentic Judaism as enshrined in the Talmud. This transformation happened because when the Second Temple was destroyed in 70 AD, the priestly system collapsed and the Sadducees and the other sects disappeared from history. The Pharisees were able to survive because they were already set up in a way that de-emphasized the temple. So over the next few centuries, the Pharisees became the teachers of Judaism, known as the rabbis. After a few hundred years, the rabbis compiled their extra-biblical traditions into one legal code, the Mishnah, institutionalizing the Pharisees' interpretive traditions. Several centuries later, discussions on the Mishnah were compiled into the Talmud. So what began as one minority sect's interpretive tradition became the dominant framework for all of Judaism. This allowed Jewish communities in diaspora to function without a temple, and it gave rabbis the authority to lead these communities. But the codified oral law didn't begin until centuries after the Torah. And although it wasn't the intention, it functionally overhauled the entire religion, replacing the Torah's authority with the authority of a whole library of books that gets to tell the Jewish people how to interpret the Torah.